Well,
Yeah.
Brian, thank you for coming on our podcast, man. I greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm happy to be on this. Again, this is my first little podcast. I've always wanted to kind of enter in and do one of these. So I'm excited to be on with you guys.
I almost figured that you already had a podcast. You're podcasting it up already.
Yeah. It's one of those things that I probably thought of like, oh, what are some things I could do and like add on? But yeah, just, when you kind of think of and I'm sure I know a lot of people that probably think about starting podcasts, like, what are you going to talk about? Right. But yeah, just one of those things that just never, I guess, fully resonated with me. I do like the conversational kind of piece, with the podcast environment, but yeah, I don't know. It was just kind of, I guess, never one of those things, at least until yet, I've just decided to jump into.
Yeah. So Mike and I are big fans of you, but for the folks that don't know, can you introduce yourself and tell everybody what your area of expertise is?
All right. Well, I like to just call myself a classically trained math teacher that has been inside the classroom for 14 years. And my story of becoming a math teacher was, a struggling math student that's really did not like how to learn math and, really had to overcome a lot of struggles. And for some reason decided to become a math teacher on that journey and had to work really, really hard and learn a lot about myself and about math. And, decided to stay being a teacher. And I stayed with that, teacher for 14 years. And then within the first couple of years, I just started recording myself teaching. I always just thought it was a cool idea for students to be able to kind of go home and watch the homework. I've, quickly learned out that I actually had an audience outside, and most of my students did not want to watch my videos, obviously, after hanging out with me all day. But I did see the power of video that, and obviously COVID just really expanded upon that. But, back in the day when I started in 2010, students would be absent for going to the hospital, or they would be going on trips. And, it just made sense to me that we have this technology to create videos that students can watch and to catch up. And obviously some students would take advantage and some students would not, but it was just the fact that they had access to that. And so I just started creating videos. I mean, every single day I'd create multiple videos, because most of my videos on YouTube, over 12,000, I think, of them now, is really just snippets of me teaching inside the classroom. So, I mean, it's as pure as you're going to kind of see. And, I would upload sometimes like 20 videos a day back in the day, and just, just everything I was doing. And so finally, those videos got some attention, and, kind of being one of the earlier pioneers of recording inside the classroom, or with a lot of math tutorials, kind of on a large, grand scale. And this year I decided to step away from the classroom, kind of focus just on doing math videos, the same thing, but just kind of full time. So I also have a little more flexibility with my family, and also just be able to do a little bit more math. When you're teaching inside the classroom, I always gave my students they were always first, right? So all my content on YouTube was from what was in the classroom, but you get constrained when you're teaching only 2 classes. You only can do so many different videos, that you're done. And so I just kind of felt it was the right time to step away. And so, yeah, that's where I'm at now in my journey.
You're kind of a pioneer in this field, because some of your videos, you could tell, like you said, you started 14 years ago. So what did you start it? You kind of mentioned it just a minute ago, but did you start it because you wanted to have some content for your students when they went home, or what kind of just triggered you to start recording in the class? Because I imagine that's kind of taboo back in the day.
It was, yeah. A lot of people, I actually got, one of the funny stories was I actually got marked down on evaluation. So, for people who don't know teachers, like every year you get your evaluation, and, there's things on like, do you know your content, and how do you, connect with your students and teachers, and planning or with parents and stuff. And one of the marks, I don't know if I have my evaluation. I should probably go and see if I kept it. But one of the evaluations I remember I got was for technology. Do you utilize technology effectively? And I actually got a performance on this. And the reason being was because I had the video camera in the middle of the classroom, and I guess it was, she marked it as a distraction, which, I mean, to her point, sometimes it could be, but I just kind of thought about that. I'm like, just how funny. I'm like, I put in so much time and effort into uploading, recording, organizing all these videos. I'm like, and you just want to knock me down because it's, some students might not be able to see the board, because there's a technology piece that's in the front. And yeah, it was back in the day, people just didn't, it just wasn't, as you kind of mentioned, not so much taboo, but it was like weird, like, oh, what, you're recording, in the classroom. And, I remember actually so I've been in real estate as well since 2012, around the same time. And I think I was at a real estate conference, and they just kind of talked about, as video was coming around, the, kind of creating the systems for, your real estate agents, or like recording what you're doing, so then having other people do it. And while I was still in real estate, and I still do real estate today, it really just kind of triggered me with this idea of like, why am I teach the same thing over and over and over again. Right. And if you actually look at my YouTube channel, my first idea was to take the first recording I actually did with my students was my introduction video. So like, the beginning day, first day of school, walk in, hey, I'm Mr. Mclogan, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I just say that, 4 times a day. I'm like, why don't I just say it once, record it, and just play it, and then just let this. And then if they want to share show their parents who I am, or whatever may be the case, I'm like, that just kind of makes sense. And then that just kind of played into like, well, I can do that for, when they're asking questions on their homework, why don't I just record that? And then, because the thing is, like, every class asks different questions, right? So if I'm teaching 3 classes on algebra 2 and everybody had their homework, there's 10 problems. Well, if maybe 2 kids will ask like on question number 1, but then nobody else asks it. Well, if you record that and make it available to other students, you might have that shy kid that's sitting in the back of the classroom, right? Who I could relate to. And, maybe you or your audience can as well. They're like, they just don't want to ask the question. They don't want to feel stupid. But if you have that videos from people that did ask the questions available for them to kind of watch, it can make a difference, And I feel like that's what some of my videos have done for students that just don't always feel like they're raising the hand, making, feeling like they need to understand things when they don't. And, there's a lot of that stress, anxiety, and frustration. So I always thought video was a nice way for people to be able to kind of, consume the information without kind of feeling exposed, which sometimes you do inside the classroom.
Oh, hey. This podcast episode is brought to you by BCN Supplements. BCN Supplements is a Texas-based company that produces and manufactures everything right here in the great United States of America. The good thing is BCN caters to every single person on the fitness spectrum, whether you're a seasoned hybrid athlete, kind of like myself, or you're a newbie just now starting to pay attention to your health, kind of like Mike. BCN has what you need to make a healthy choice. Lately, I've been using BCN's pre-workout mix, and to be honest, I'm not really a pre-workout guy because I don't like the way most on the market make you feel. The crash and that tingly feeling, but you don't get any of that junk with BCN's pre-workout mix. I've noticed I had more focus during my lifts and more energy to carry through my longer workouts, and that pump you get is it's amazing. Drop what you're doing right now and go to bcnsubs.com to place your order today on this pre-workout mix. They got vitamins and they got collagen, and be sure to use promo code CWJM to receive 10% off your next purchase. BCN Supplements, helping build a better you from the inside out.
Did you see it all whenever you put the camera up that kids started trying to be like the class clown more, or try to be more in the video? Did you see some of that early on, or even now?
Yeah, I mean,
or not now, but
yeah, but there's definitely, obviously the more popular the channel got, the more kind of attention it would get inside the classroom. But typically, I mean, I always told the students that, I mean, I'm here for you. Like, and if you watch those videos in the classroom, I never look at the camera. I mean, maybe obviously there might be 1 or 2 instances, but when I'm inside the classroom, like, I am teaching the class, like, you are just watching me teach. So, and I really wanted to make that apparent because, I got, there was parent conferences that people tried to get their student out of the class because they just thought I was, just all about me, all about my YouTube channel, wasn't really teaching, and that was very hurtful for me because, like, I really, really wanted to make important that, the students are first. Like, I am teaching. All I'm doing is when I'm talking, I'm just pressing a button and let's do it. So, I mean, I went in, like, kids would raise their hand. I would take questions. I think a lot of YouTube students get that interaction. They like that kind of interaction because it's unexpected, and I mean, there's a video where a kid swears and I get mad. And, like, I mean, it's just a very natural kind of inside look into a kind of a classroom setting, or at least, and also kind of to see how I evolved, which is, I think, really funny because, my management skills. When you're a beginning teacher, you just don't know what you don't know. And they were poor. Right. And then throughout the years, as you obviously get more older, you get better, teaching skills and management skills, you can command the classroom much better. Right. And so it's kind of cool. It's like this little collection of seeing me evolve as a teacher, not only just with my instruction, but how I'm able to instruct and stuff like that. But yeah, there's definitely kids that would do like the bunny ears, you'll see on some videos, or there's videos like where they would clap at the end of the video. They had fun and they enjoyed it. And I wanted that to always be a part, but I always felt bad too when students would feel like, sometimes they would say they didn't want to ask a question, if they felt like it was recording. And, so it was always a fine line that I always try to make sure, like, I wanted all the students to understand, like, they were first, like, I might record 20 videos a day. Like if I have to delete one, or for like whatever, like that's fine. Like the instruction was always first. And so that's what I always try to make a point with them. Cause yeah, I definitely got some heat sometimes from parents and students, especially if grades weren't where they wanted to be, my YouTube,
center of attention
passion would a lot of times come up.
I was just going to say, to end that, it's very bold of you to put that up too. I mean, you're basically, when it comes to performance reviews or how you teach or whatever, if anybody has any questions, you just go to YouTube and look at every one of your classes. And and then it's cool though. You can get that, you can look back and see where you can correct things. As we do this podcast, we do the same thing. We're like, oh, I do this too much, or I'm not clear on what I say or things like that. So I think that's also a good growth strategy for you, being able to look back and see how you're teaching and the styles.
It's very good too. And I mean, the tough thing too with YouTube is, some people will still call me out, on like, oh, you responded harshly to the student or stuff. And it's like, or you didn't explain that in a very well manner. And like, yeah, it's like the first way I might compare teach something when I was like a second year teacher compared to when I'm a 10-year veteran is going to be different, right? You're going to things, or, sometimes I might teach something for the first time. So I'm nice and slow, and very detailed. Whereas some of my videos, it might be like the night before a test. So a student's like, how do I do this? So I'm just doing it really quickly, fastest way possible, So like, that was kind of like, there's that hodgepodge kind of moments, but I always thought it was just the best to, just put yourself out there. And, I do learn a lot from the comments of people letting me know, especially when I was still teaching. It is kind of like that active feedback, and I'd always get feedback from the students, as well, like how am I teaching and stuff. And so the comments kind of help that as well, because they're not inside the classroom, but they can view how I am reacting and how I'm like, teaching a certain concept. And I've learned different ways to teach things from comments and on YouTube too, from that, which is amazing because, a lot of times teaching, even though I'd be connected with my other teachers that were inside my school, you're still kind of in a bubble when you're in the classroom, you're just kind of self-contained. So it is kind of nice seeing different viewpoints or vantage points from not just people that are in your school or in the United States, but all over the world, really.
Yeah. You mentioned that you struggled with math, and if someone goes to your channel and they watch you teach it, it's real evident that you teach it in a way that 95% of people can understand the way you teach, whether it's calculus, algebra, trigonometry, whatever it is. You have a way of teaching. I don't know what the best way to say it, but you can dumb it down to where some kids can understand it across all knowledges of math. It's almost like I don't believe that you struggled growing up through math, and it frustrates to hear. For me, it's frustrating to hear that you struggled in math and now you're so damn good at it. I mean, what drove you to be or to gain the knowledge of becoming a better mathematician?
Well, I still have a long, long way to go. So I don't consider myself a great, mathematician, at least in that sense, like, because I think the one thing that's always stuck with me, like learning math, is like, the more you know, the more you don't know. And it just opens your eyes up to this world. You're like, holy crap, there is so much more math for me to know and understand. And teaching opened that up a lot for me too, as well. I mean, when I first started teaching, you're like, all right, I got a math degree, I've taken all these math classes, I'm ready to go. And then I remember getting into like teaching even algebra 1. And I remember first year, second year teacher. So I'd probably say a little cocky. I'm like, it's algebra 1. I don't need to be preparing for these lessons or, stuff. And then you get to some of the concepts that you had to teach, and you would get flustered on like why things worked, or the connections that really need to be made. And even though, and I think that's the one thing that I always kind of, what frustrated me with math was a lot of people that are good at math, or with math teachers, or a math teacher, they're good at math. They enjoy math. They see those connections very instantly. And sometimes they can explain them too as well. My point was a lot of the connections when I would read something in a math book or I'd take down notes, it wouldn't immediately click for me. Right. And so what I had to be able to do was, try to look at more different ways to kind of make those connections and really let it kind of sit and understand things, where it might take, some people, those students in math class, they can just, literally just look at the problem. They're like, okay, good. Don't need to study, show up on the test. Right. And I was the student that was, I'd get the idea, I'd get the general concept, but then I'd go home, completely forget everything that I just wrote down, and would have to then go back and look at the book. And the thing that frustrated me the most was either on my book or in the notes, you'd write something down, but then to go from one step to the next, you're like, crap, how do I go from here to here? And I think that's the most frustrating thing. And even from a teacher, I can relate to, from teachers or people that really understand mathematics or are good at mathematics, sometimes you get caught up in those mundane, tasks, right? All right, we've already been studying solving equations, so I'm not going to go through this step by step with you, right? And you'll skip over it. But also that's where a lot of students were that's where they get tricked up. It's those things they just kind of forget, or it's just that little piece of connection. So when I think about this as from a teacher, there's a lot of times in my, my videos where I will skip steps, like I said, we're doing a review. Hey guys, we got it. We're time crunched, we're going through that. But a lot of times when I'm trying to instruct something, I remember I'll get to a point where I'm like, should I explain this step by step? Or can I just say, hey, we go from here and I can do the math in my head, right? Especially if you're, been teaching this for already a semester, you kind of already got you're doing the math in your head, but then you just put yourself into the student's perspective. And it's no, I would stop myself so many times because I'm like, this is where you would get frustrated as a student, So yeah, I would take the extra time. Sometimes it'd be a minute, sometimes it might be 10 minutes, and really try to explain to students why I was doing a certain step, or why we needed to do, this step and then that step and that step. And I think that's what's, at least in my opinion, what I kind of needed as a student that I didn't really get, and what I tried to portray in my instruction, for it was really that, not trying to just jump over things. Right. And I think for a lot of people that are good at math, they if they haven't experienced a lot of those frustrations, it's very easy for them to be like, oh, well, you already know how to do this. We've already done this, so you should be able to do it. Right. But that's where the most students, even though they might have done it, they might have forgot it already, or they just need more practice with it. So the idea of slowing it down and explaining the steps, I think is what's kind of, helped out from there. And then also just being a teacher has, as I mentioned, the explaining those steps has really helped me see things that, as I mentioned, even with the math degree, I'm like, oh, I know so much more now how things are. But then also, you look at, but then you're learning more things with that. Now you have this new, it's literally just you're like, oh, I now have a new perspective. So then you look at more math and you're like, holy crap, this can be applied to all of this stuff. And then it's and that's where I was like, oh, and that's where I kind of got my math nerd on. I was like, I want to do more math, I want to get back into exploring more of the stuff that, once I became a teacher, I kind of had to stop, slow down on that. Obviously I learned a lot as a teacher, the content I was teaching, but some of the other stuff, I just didn't have time. So that's where it's really interesting me to see in a lot of the, uniqueness and the cool things about math that we don't often explore in high school, or in college, that people just don't have access to. They just think of math as a course that you get a grade and, it's for something else, for another degree or, credit that you need.
I'm glad you ended that way. I wanted to highlight, I think of, math isn't everything. And some people see math more clearly in everything and in the world and different functions and things like that. And then, but we, me and Jon kind of see it as formulas that we have to learn that will, you can use at work or in other kind of settings. But I was curious, as a person that does math all the time and, an expert, do you see the world differently knowing the math you do? Are things easier for you? Do you see out in the world that that math isn't everything? One of his buddies sees numbers and things. He looks at things, whether he calculates how many things are in a room or if he sees the physical number in something. Do you view the world any differently since you're a math expert?
Yes, 100%.
Oh wow,
absolutely 100%. One thing I would kind of like mention. So when I was in college, I worked on a painting crew. And, we would just travel around through nights, and we just painted, different commercial buildings and stuff. And I remember one thing was, maybe it was an Applebee's or something like that. I can't remember, but, it's kind of like the same thing when we were working the trade. Then I remember like going into that restaurant with my dad. And I just remember like, it wasn't a restaurant I painted, but I was able to like I was critiquing the whole paint job, right? Because I did that for a whole summer. Every night we were going to a different Applebee's or whatever it was, and we were painting, those buildings. So, and then every other restaurant I did for the last couple of years, I was always critiquing their job. Right. And I think that's kind of that natural of like, once you kind of notice some of the detail that goes into some things that a lot of people will just overlook, you see it, right? And it's kind of like the same idea, when you're looking for buying a car, right? And then you notice your car is all over, on the highway when you might have never, noticed it before. And with math, that really kind of happened with me once I got into calculus, because up to calculus, I just kind of relate math in high school or into pre-calculus, kind of like the learning how to play an instrument. You're just practicing drills. You're just doing stuff that doesn't make really any connection to what you're supposed to any kind of thing, real life. Anything that is connected to real life is just some stupid, weird math problem that somebody created, to try to be applicable to real life, but it's really, not. And so you just kind of go through the process, right? But then once I got into calculus and you really start seeing how things can be applied with just all over in like the real world. And then I got into more upper level math classes. And then, I was just like, holy crap. It's like, and I think that's one of my biggest passions, where I always liked math. I liked math for the kind of the logic kind of sense of it. I don't really, I'm not like a mathematician in the sense where I just love doing math problems. I like just the kind of the brain teaser kind of idea and just how things are kind of connected, and then thinking about mathematics. So much more on the pure mathematics side rather than the application, which would be like physics, physics and stuff. But once I got into those upper level mathematics, I just remember I was like, holy crap, this is like, whereas I wasn't really connected with math before. Once I learned more and seeing it, I remember feeling like I really want everybody to be able to have this feeling that I have, where I'm like, I want everybody to know this, And I remember even thinking of like a book. I'm like, what would the world be like if everybody knew calculus? Nothing major like some of the stuff I was doing, but I'm like, if people had access to seeing these connections, and I mean, I was just like, the world would be a completely different place. If people understood really how to think analytically, or if same thing, like when you look into finance, when I was teaching, I'm teaching my students about compound interest, and, some of the students, you just see that light bulb and they're like, holy crap. It's like, it just opens up their, like, they never were exposed to it. And then they it's just a light bulb and they see it and they're like, that's it. I see the power of compound interest. I see how the rich get rich. It's like, I see what I need to do. And I'm like, I wish everybody, could get to that point. And then obviously we could probably have 3 more podcasts on the failures of math education and why everybody's not going to take calculus, and, what we kind of do preventing that. But like I said, that could be a whole other, topic that we get to. But to answer your question very bluntly, there's a lot that I've noticed that I see with mathematics. And again, not everything, like I don't see numbers like a math savant, but I do see, when you look at things that are designed and see how they're played, like for things I know and see, like it's really cool to think about the math and everything that need to be done to get some of those things in motion.
Most of the things I think of that I would like to know, I think that's a big connection with students, is how you can use this math in your life, because John's taking trig right now, and you know, teachers can teach in a way that you like, you know, how am I going to use trig to go make a table, you know, outside, and use it in carpentry, or like, how can I actually use it rather than just doing the actual solving the problems and things like that. But I like that. And I mentioned to John not too long ago, I'm doing, have you ever heard of Duolingo?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. It's where you learn different languages. It's app based. But I was like, man, if they had a Duolingo for math, like the way they do it, it's just easy. And the way you understand math, if you got with the app developer and something like that, and made it easy for other students, since you struggled the same way, because I feel like some students, they just get it. They get it right away, and then it's easy. And then some of us struggle, and with that struggle, you're able to relate with regular students, because we're the same people that kind of lost it after a while and just never could, you know, got off track and can never catch up. But I think there's definitely value in how you teach it. Some of the teachers teach you like you already know, and they don't kind of go through the fundamentals of what you need to do. I'm also about to take math too, so I'm probably gonna be hitting up your videos pretty hard. Do you think, why don't you see a lot of students, and if you you know, a lot of people don't get math. Is there a type of personality trait that you see that typically get it right away and some that don't?
No, but now you're getting into some real passionate stuff for me. No, yeah, I think there's, no, it's good. You know, I think, cause I don't think there's not enough of the conversation that, you know, goes into why people don't or why people struggle with math, and why people, you know, some people get it. And I think we just, you know, a lot of the easy way is just to, you know, respond with, yeah, there's math people and there's non-math people. Right. And that's really been the kind of status quo for so long. People are like, oh, I'm not good at math. You know, it's like, and like, okay, you're just not a math person. Fine. And it's like, you never think of like, there's never been such an excuse that's been so accepted that you're just not good at math. And people are like, okay, you know, it's like, oh, I failed the test, I'm not good at math. And it's like, okay, you know, and it's like, it just amazes me how, and I haven't thought too much of it, but I'm like, what else is comparable to where like whole society just accepts people being bad at math, right? And on the flip side of that, people that are good at math are treated like savant, you know, same thing. Like you guys said, like, oh, you're like so good at math, you know, like you're a savant.
Goodwill
like,
Hunting. You're like Goodwill Hunting, man. You're like this.
Right. You know, and it's like, we have these like two extremes, and it's just very fascinating. You know, how we put people on that understand math on some kind of, you know, pedestal, which again, yes, hey, like it's good to be math, and like math is a very important subject, and especially something I'm very passionate on. But I think something you guys mentioned earlier, it's like, it's not the whole world, right? I mean, there's plenty of people that are very successful that, you know, don't have a very strong math background, right? Very successful in business, very successful in life and everything else. But then there's also people that are very good mathematicians, right? That are, you know, not successful in other areas, you know? So it's like, it's not an end all be all just to be good at math and like your problems in life are solved, right? And so the thing that kind of gets to me, what I've kind of noticed with students that struggle with math, and those that, you know, kind of are successful, is the one thing I think with is kind of like the upbringing. And I think a lot of times, you know, it is very serious that thoughts that we, you know, infuse into our children and how they're raised, you know, and that if they believe that learning math is just something that you can not be good at, and then they can believe that truth, you know, and it can take years and years of them just believing that. And one of the things I think that gave me the greatest satisfaction as a teacher is when students would believe that they couldn't be successful in math, and they would be frustrated. They would want to quit. They would want to, they would, want to quit math. They didn't want to continue struggling. And the would work with them and I would talk with them, and their ability to be able to kind of overcome those struggles is one thing obviously I could relate to in life. Right? I had my own struggle with math, right? But it was also something that I realized that, a lot of students need that. Sorry about that. A lot of students need that. Kind of motivation, and they need that that positive reinforcement that they can continue working on things. Math is not, in my opinion, math is not something that is, just a magical bullet that some students get, some students don't. It is something that students work hard for, right? And they put in that consistent effort. It's not sexy. It's not very fun. It's not, let's just get good at math. It's going to be something easy, and I think that's why a lot of people, it's, sometimes, especially for math teachers, like it's a hard sale, right? Compared to, some other courses and stuff, like it takes some work and it takes some diligence, but putting in that time of effort, having a good support system, not accepting the status quo that because you're struggling, you're just not good at math. And also I think, having the resources, either at home or in your classroom. I mean, we have a huge disparity in, our education system, what, resources students have access to for learning math and, mentoring and, tutoring and everything like that. And I think I think giving students those access to that and that reinforcement that they can be successful in it. And I do think there is some definitely things with education that we focus on with mathematics, that kind of makes it a little bit probably more harder than it needs to be. Like I said, we haven't really changed the curriculum in mathematics in many, many years, kind of to your point of like, why am I learning about some of this stuff, right? There should be definitely some more things that are much more relevant to what we need from our society and what we need them to understand compared to what we needed them 50 years ago, right? When we're trying to get them, 50, 70 years ago, and we're trying to get a man on the moon. So there's kind of that aspect of it. But I think the big thing with the students is, I think when you're mentioned to students that struggle and students that don't, I think a lot with that kind of belief system and what they're able to do with the math. I mean, I've had students that have struggled the heck out of math, should not have been in my class, but they were willing to put in the effort and they were willing to work with me, and we got them where they needed to be, and I've had students that have failed first semester and got an A second semester, and there's time and time example of that. And then I've also had students that have never been tested, never been like challenged, before, and maybe they weren't, and then they come in, they get the first challenge where they don't understand. And rather than focusing on fixing, understanding where they made their mistake or, why, maybe math was, easy up to that point, and now math is hard. Well, guess what? That's okay. You're going to develop classes, you're going to develop courses, you're going to develop times in life where things are going to be a struggle, but rather than persevere, and have that kind of grit in the work, they would just quit and give up. Right. And so it was because it's much easier. It's much safer to say, I'm not good at math. Let me save, my reputation here. I'm just, I was good until numbers were involved. Right. Or, all the other things. I was good until trig came along. Then math lost me. It's much easier. It's much safer. Yeah. Right. But and again, we have just as much blame on society as we do with the education model and how we create that and stuff like that. So there's not a switch that we can just flip. But yeah, I do think there's definitely some similarities for those that struggle, and for those that kind of are good at math, they put it, they have that experience, they put in that time, they practice, and stuff like that.
You mentioned some great points there. The home factor is a subject that I don't know how we solve that. Some parents are really involved, and those parents may be educated and then can teach the kids, help their children at home, versus some students, they may grow up in a broken household and don't have that support. So that's something completely different. But in Texas specifically, if I think about the education system, and how it's morphed, even from when I've been in school, it's kind of morphed into this, we're going to teach you to take this, STAR test or TOS test, whatever it is. Do you see any faults in our education system that could be changed I don't know what state you're in. I'm sure your state has similar testing guidelines that they have to be. And it turns into this political realm of, no, we don't need to teach that way. We need to be teaching this way. How do we get out of that? I mean, how do we teach more like you're teaching on your channel, where you can the subject can be applied to something that's tangible to kids these days?
$1 million question. It really is. Cause that I think I teach in Florida, and one of I think the biggest issues, we've had, which, I don't have any great answers to go, but we've had so much of this focus on, same thing, SAT, ACT, college admissions, and doing all well in these tests. And then also in addition to that, then tying the teachers, their evaluations, which I talked about before, right? Which again, kind of, I would laugh about that, thing. Cause I'm like, I know I'm teaching, right? I know I'm a good enough teacher where it's like my students are going to perform well enough where I'm not going to get a needs improvement overall evaluation, right? Unless somebody really wanted to get me, like, I know my students are going to learn in my classroom, right? You walk in my classroom, I am going to make sure you learn. But again, there's a flip side of that. Like when you put that carrot in front of the teachers, when the carrot on the stick for the teacher is like, these students got to perform on their test, but no, don't teach the test. But hey, if they don't perform, like we might not give you that class next year, or, you might not get a good performance review. Right. Well, it's like, I mean, what do you expect? What do you think is going to happen? Of course, the teacher might say, I'm not teaching you tests, but they're going to pour out extra practice and make sure, all right, kids, you need to know this stuff. And, so then you have these students that are totally disengaged with the content, with the information. And then they're just going back to like being forced of practice. The same stuff we were trying to get out, from the standardized testing of, this rote memorization. And because, we're trying to make sure that we get the school grade up, right? I mean, the school, this grades, the school has got to, have so many students that are testing in here. We got to make sure we get a good ACT or SAT score so we can get into a good college. We don't know what that means yet, but that's what we have to do. Right. And that's what's kind of been sold to us. And yeah, it's unfortunately, for all the improvements we've tried to make with math, to make it more applicable, to make it more tangible, where you can just relax. It doesn't need to be this frustrating concept in this frustrating class where, I mean, I think there's nothing that, hurts me the most too, is like when students like, I hate math. Like I literally hate math. And it's like, that's so sad. You never had the opportunity to just see what I see with math. Your only relation to it was either I didn't understand something, or I was just forced to do this torture, basically, to get right. A certain grade or to get a certain thing. Right. And it's like, and to me, that's just it just makes me sad that, and again, so what do they tell their kids? Right. Oh, math sucks. Right. Or what, that you just see how this has evolved and kind of where it's to the point it is today. And so, and yeah, it's tough. I think there is a dynamic, right, of trying to move away from the testing, but it's kind of finding that, middle ground. Like, obviously we want students, we want strong math. And I think the issue that I have is we want students that are going to be mathematicians to be mathematicians. Like, we want competition, or at least in my view, like we want people to do their best to harness, right? But I don't think that for people that are not being mathematicians or not going to go in, like, we still want them to learn mathematics, but I don't want to torture them in competing with these people that do love math and do love doing 100 math problems, like, for their homework. Right. And so I think the problem that we have is like everybody's grouped together, and everybody's being compared to, and that's one of those, issues that, if you didn't do bad on the, math ACT version, like, it's like you're looked down upon or something like that. And it's like, we all have our own traits, what we're good at and, what we might not be a natural fit at. And of course you can get better at mathematics, but like we need engineers, we need strong math students. We need to push those math students. We need honors math classes, but I don't think we need to be testing them. Right. And they need to be competing, for those and do improving. That's how we're going to get to be the best. That's how we're going to produce the best mathematicians. But that whole idea does not work for everybody in the general population, for the people that are not going to be engineers and math people, like we don't need to be forcing these, these high stakes tests on that and say, oh, well, you can't go into this college, right? Or you're not going to graduate, because you can't pass algebra 2 and, knowing how to do some variable stuff. Like, hey, I'm a big proponent of students knowing math, but I think there is a gauge on what we want students to know for math. Right. And again, like, comparing to what you're trying to do with your life, you can be very, there's very successful people that have a very limited math knowledge. I would like for them to see what I see and know what I know, but it's not something that like guaranteed success in their life, So I think we need to kind of have a rethink and a reframe of what we want our students to know and what we want to test them on. Because it is a gate. It is a gate of what we expect our students to know. And that gate really hasn't changed. And if we're just going to hold our teachers accountable and our students accountable, well, they're going to do whatever they need to. The people that have the resources are going to hire private tutors, and the parents that have the means are going to, put their kids going into Saturday school and put all those, it's like, and then they're going to have miserable lives. They're going to get to a college and they realize they don't want to be at that college, and they're going to get a job that they don't want to be at. And, then they're going to have a house and a car they don't want, it's like, you can see how some of these things, it's like, that's what you're expected to do. And that's how things are set up. But it's not necessarily, I think, for everything and everybody.
Yeah. I mean, you made a really good point. I mean, we want our, like nuclear engineers proficient in math, and our people working in the industrial plants and building planes. We want the math to be right on that stuff. But
and we want the best of the best, right? We want more of them, and like we want to encourage them to go into those fields. Yeah. But to say that you're not capable because you can't pass a certain test, whatever else, or even like we don't need, I love the idea where, again, I had this idea of like, what if everybody knew calculus? But it's something that kind of made a change. Is like, I don't think of what if everybody knew calculus in terms of your idea of like, as an engineer needs to know calculus, right? But what if everybody knew calculus? There's a, YouTube video, like you're, teaching calculus to a 5th grader. You can teach the general concepts of calculus in a very, basic way that students can relate to it and understand it. And, but just the idea of like, that's, there's already this, persona, or not persona, but this idea that, oh, no, we, calculus would be only for smart math people can only, know the calculus or, stuff like that. And it's like, no, we like, there's a whole new rethink of like what concepts and what we need and what needs to be the gate, who's going to get into the door and not get into the door. Like there needs to be some adjustments. And there's some things that are, going down. I know there's some colleges that aren't, are taking away the SAT, ACT, and I don't know. We'll see. I think there's, a lot of from that backlash is, or for a lot of the backlash from there is, you can see the people that have the means to do well on some of those tests can afford the extra tutors, and stuff. But then also you feel that people that, when you look at coming from different schools, they have equal access to do well, just as well on a test, when you just are stripped down everything and you are just a number, like your name on a SAT, like, you have the equal opportunity to do well on the SAT compared to others. So, the testing is tough. I think I personally, as a teacher, hate this time of year, because of so much testing. I'm not against having students being tested. As I mentioned, we need to know who our engineers are, right? We need to know where people stand. And there needs to be some kind of accountability, or at least understanding of how things are going with understanding data, obviously as a math, understanding the data and what's things happening. But it's quickly turned into this, everything needs to be, measured in education. Everything needs to be, oh, well, it's not going to be, hurt you. And it's like, of course it does. Like I've had plenty of conversations where, again, you can't, look at the data like, oh, here's teacher A versus teacher B. Teacher A, all the students pass. Teacher B, like nobody passes. Like, well, there's so many more factors just than teacher A and teacher B, like so many other factors. So it's just not fair to just look at it as far as teacher A is better than teacher B. But the data at least helps you would have that conversation. But I think a lot of times we overlook the conversation and just focus on, one teacher better than the other, and let's just move the teacher and move things around. So I don't think the data is always utilized the best it can. And I think we've over-tested our students in our current environment.
We talked about on the last couple episodes about how the world has become a lot different from back in the day, where things are a little fluffier today. Like you have attendance awards and like everybody wins a trophy and things like that. Math missed the memo. Like math, it's sink or swim. It's always been that way. And it's kind of like you can't escape it. It's like college debt and passing a math class. There's no out. You got to put in the work to get those things.
I disagree with you a little bit more. And especially this is actually something that's even come to me more recently because yeah, you're right. And I think that is true actually for what you said for a lot of still classes, like, hey, you either know how to do this stuff or not. Right. But one thing that I've noticed, and one thing that even very frustrated me with education, which was not a big reason, for me stepping away, but obviously, I talked about family and focusing on YouTube, but also was something that really just frustrated and, annoyed me was again, kind of going to like this focus on testing was focused, same thing on the grades, students, if, I had students drop out of my class if they didn't get an A. So, and then, there was a lot of times I would be pressured. The students like at a B+, and the parents are calling, they were calling it was like a heavy twisting your arm. Like this grade needs to be changed. Like this student cannot get a B, kind of idea. And the same thing, I like as a teacher, so like same kind of thing, like when I was in high school, and again, to their giving the student and the parent a little bit more credit, the stress and the stakes were not as high when I was in high school. I was talking about something recently on one of my live streams. I was like, I got a D in pre-college. I'm like, I just didn't care. I was like, whatever. I'm like, I was going to college. Like I was cool. I think part of that was my personality, but then part of it was like, it wasn't like this, you go to college or you're not going to be anything in life, kind of idea, which was kind of this thing we've sold to so many students, for so many years. And so, I have students that, cried, freaking out. Like I cannot go home with a B. I cannot go home with, an A-. And, again, too, like even administration, it's like, what else can we do? What else can we do for the students? Rather than I remember, when I was in high school, it's like, oh, you didn't turn that in? 0. Right. And again, and then for me, it's like, oh, we can't give a 0. Like, what else can we do to this student to get to a B? So it doesn't matter really what I gave the students. If the parent or whatever else really, really wanted or needed the grade, it would basically, I had to be strong armed to, offering them an additional retake, and I had my policies. I was a very liberal teacher in the fact of like, I allowed students to be able to make up tests, to, turn things in, not so much late. They had to turn them into the day of the test. But compared to like when I was in high school, like all the stuff I did as a teacher was basically unheard of. Like, no, it's either you turn it in or you don't get, or I'm not accepting it and you get a 0. Right. And like, that's it. Like there's no gray area. And I feel like from now, it's like we've turned into so much of this gray area was basically like, I wouldn't say it was a pay to play, but it was basically like, let me complain enough to be able to get what I want. And then basically if I don't get what I want, like I can just go up the chain and like, eventually you kind of get what you want, for most students, and like, and I just hated it because as a teacher, I pride myself on whatever a student's grade was like, that was something I could stand on, right? There's nothing worse than like getting a student that's like, oh, you have all A's. You have absolutely no idea what's going on. Right. And like, hey, congratulations, your GPA is awesome. But like, what does that mean if you don't know what you're doing? And like, so I'm like, especially like for pre-calculus, you just think about pre-calculus, where are you going? Like if you have an A in pre-calculus, you're typically going into calculus, right? And I taught calculus, and I also, we also had another calculus teacher. Well, of course we would talk and like, I can't say like, oh, that student got an A. And then she's like, this student doesn't know what they're doing. Like, how does that reflect on me as a teacher? right? So I always wanted to make sure I had the best reflection of a grade for a student. And again, hey, like if a student doesn't know anything, but they want to work and put in the effort and like do what they can to earn a D, it's like, or a B or a C, like that's fine. But if they do all that, if they're putting in all that effort or still like they're taking a test, retakes, whatever may be the case, but they still have a B sense of the knowledge, not B effort, a B sense of the knowledge, well, then they deserve a B, right? And again, a B in this world is much higher stakes than a B when I was in high school. So I get that. But in the same respect, yeah, it's like, I mean, people like it just became people would just do whatever they needed to do to get whatever grade they wanted, and it's like, and that's a sad thing, I think, for our teachers and for our education system, because yeah, that's what it's just turned into. Like that's become the new carrot. It's like, I just need to get this grade. I'm not really interested in what I need to learn or where I'm going. It's like, I just need this grade so I can go to the school or whatever may be the case, get the GPA, go to the school to get this degree, and that's where thinking. And then I think there's definitely been a loss of learning, which I think also kind of plays into that ACT world. It's like, hey, I'm not totally against the ACT, SAT, but again, like I don't think it's the best way to like determine if somebody, what they know, right? Or if how successful they're going to be, right? And I think that's why they've kind of retracted a little bit on there. It's like looking at, the other activities people are doing and, their kind of whole journey, a kind of more of a holistic approach to see what kind of student they really are going to be, So, yeah, I definitely see, there's definitely some positives with the math, but I definitely see a lot of that creeping in though too. What I've seen for like, especially just for grades, get on from there.
America compared to other countries. There's been a lot of recent articles about China and the use of TikTok, that their algorithm promotes educational videos versus America. Our algorithm is stupid videos or stupid pranks. And then you dig a little deeper and you look at the way that they teach their students. It's heavily geared towards science, math, and those types of subjects. Do you feel like America is kind of focused on the wrong subjects? It seems like we're not teaching as focused on science and math as other countries.
Yes and no. I think there's a good piece on, I think it was in Freakonomics, I think, that talked about like why why Asians are good at math kind of idea. And it was kind of like very interesting, kind of piece as far as like their culture and, and again, the same thing as like it was kind of put in like the focus to attention, the focus to detail and the grit and to overcome, and to putting in that time and effort, which I think are pinnacles of success, not just in mathematics, but in life, right? Like to be good at anything, as far as your podcast, like your podcast number 1 compared to podcast 100 is completely night and day, right? So so I think those are very important traits that I think the different cultures put emphasis on, that not to say Americans don't, but as like, when you think about it on the larger scale, like there's a lot of things going on with, in America that will drive attention. Right. But in the same respect, I don't, kind of going back to what I mentioned before, like I don't put just like knowing math as this pinnacle of like success. Like, I always read the article like, oh, we're behind in the Chinese or in Singapore, like of knowing math and blah, blah. I'm like, I just don't really care. Like the one, like you think about what they're doing with math, like they're, I've watched some like things on there, like it's a very drilled down, like they'll know some like trick, like how to fastly do some like mathematical stuff, like basic arithmetic, but like, different way of thinking about it. And again, with technology, with calculators, a lot of the older things we just don't really need to know. We need, as I mentioned, we need engineers. We need people to be very high mathematical thinkers. We definitely need those. So when you're comparing our best and brightest compared to, different cultures around the world, like, yes, we want the best scientists, compared to China, compared to Russia, compared to France, like all over, like we want the best of the best. Right. And we have to create a system, that is going to foster that. But in the same respect, when you look at people, like being successful, or, you know, when you look at those different things, I also think of if you just put math at this pinnacle, right? Or just like working hard, doing all these math problems is like our way of being success or being better than you. You know, I also just have a vision also of like students that like, you know, they had so much stress and pressure from their parents, not to be Asian, I mean, any parents, but they had so much stress from their parents of having to be good in math or having to get an A or having to do well. You just saw it, like, I mean, it crippled them, you know, it's like, I mean, it's like their self-esteem, their ability to like be able to communicate and to like overcome things. I mean, it was just, you could see their stress levels were like through the roof. And I don't think that is a measurement of success for, you know, as for us compared to like another country. Like, I think there's some pure benefit, you know, into us again, like what we know, like in far as like comparing to other societies, you know, and our ability to be able to communicate and adapt and stuff, you know, because math is, you know, when you think about like the math studying, like, you know, especially if you want to be a very, very good mathematician, right? You're practicing a lot. It's very rigid. It's very direct. And like, you're staring at a problem. If you can't figure it out, you're going to focus on that problem. Well, that's a very good trait to have for a very certain subset of fields, mathematics related or not, like of that we need people to be like, for instance, same thing, like even a mechanic, right? We want a mechanic that's very detailed, right? That knows what they're doing and can problem solve, right? But then also does their job correctly, right? But in the same respect, you know, when you're for a non-mathematical field, you know, even if it's TikTok or like comedy, you know, you look at TikTok, like the creativity, how some people think of things, and or even like sales. You know, when I got into real estate, one of the best things that I came into, you know, I tried to do at least with my math is like, when you look at somebody's like ability to sell something, you know, where it's just the natural progression. I mean, it's an art form, right? And you don't think of like mathematicians as like being able to sell. Like if you're a strong mathematician, like, no, I need you to do this bridge, like do the calculations for the bridge, right? Salesman, make a funny TikTok video and sell me some bit. Like we need both of those people in the society. And that's what I don't get. It's like, we put math on this pinnacle. Like we need the best, you know, we need to be better than China in math. And it's like, no, we need our best of the best to be just as good or better than them. But like, we don't want our whole society to be mathematicians, right? That's gonna, and I think that idea that like trying to promote that has, you know, focused a lot of people to focus on the wrong things, you know, and that's where you see like these people that they're like, you know, my parents made me become a lawyer, maybe become a doctor, you know, or like they just feel like they have to follow suit with what is kind of expected of them. And so, yeah, I mean, obviously TikTok has some benefits. Obviously there's definitely some drawbacks to it. I've been sucked in many, many times as well, but,
right now.
But I always like the same thing, like look at the positives, you know, from it. And I just don't think of it as this black and white, like everybody has to be good at math, or if you're good at math, then you are somehow better than somebody else. Right. And so that's the way I kind of like to view things.
We've both seen your passion, throughout your work on YouTube and also on this podcast. So how hard was it to move away from the classroom and go exclusively on YouTube? And what was the point when you knew you needed to make the transition?
So it was very difficult. It still kind of is. I also coached wrestling at my school for a while. One of the reasons I wanted to become a teacher was like, I liked coaching. You know, I always had good role models as coaches. And so I eventually, you know, I didn't do it when I first moved down. When I first became a teacher, I was all focused on teaching. And then I was like, all right, I'm going to do, you know, coaching. And I remember doing coaching, and I was coaching wrestling. And, you know, if you're aware of wrestling, it's, you know, all day through, we were, you know, practicing 3 hours, 2.5 hours every single day. And then all day Friday nights, all day Saturdays. And then also in addition, don't forget, I was still a realtor and I was also, also teaching too. So, I mean, I was just running myself ragged. Right. And I finally knew at that point, I'm like, I only did it for 2 years because after this second year, I made this realization. I loved coaching. I loved getting back into it. I was, you know, wrestling with the wrestlers, you know, I was getting back in shape myself. Like I get that adrenaline feel. But once I realized, like, if I can't be 100% for these wrestlers, I was having my assistant coach, start practice because I couldn't get there in time, or he would finish practice because I'd have to leave early. And I'm like, if I can't do this 100%, they don't deserve me as a wrestling coach, even though they might love me. And even though, we might have a good interaction, I'm like, if I can't do this 100%, like, it's not fair to them. So I stepped away from wrestling. And I always said, I'm like, I'm going to continue being a teacher as long as I can feel like I can give it 100%. And it really was, I started to have kind of rumblings going through, and during kind of COVID, when was it 1920 school year, right before COVID happened, we were kind of in that process. Like, we already had 2 kids, and, teaching was just getting a little bit redundant for me. And I wasn't feel like I was giving it my all, and I was like, kind of thinking, but I never would have stepped away from the classroom. It literally had to be something that would have like forced me out. And then COVID happened. And obviously, we stepped away from the classroom. We all went online. Thankfully, I was already prepared for my students. So we basically didn't miss a beat on that. They already had the videos and everything was already digitally created for them. So unfortunately for them, I was already prepared. But yeah, so I was like, all right, COVID, now we're going back. I'm like, I can't quit. Not like, even if I had these rumblings, I'm like, I feel like I need to step away, times now. But I was like, now there's a, pandemic going on. I'm like, I got to step up. I can't back away from the classroom now. Like, I got to dig my heels in and like show students how to get through this. This is my first time, going through something like that. Obviously, going through something that's just dramatically changing everything we know. You don't know what's the next week's going to look like, And so I was like, I got to go back to the classroom. And thankfully, going back to the classroom, I actually got 3 classes or 3 preps. So I got to teach some classes I hadn't taught in years. So it kind of gave me an idea, an ability to be like, have I lost really the spark from teaching? Or is it just, I needed a different class? A lot of times teaching, you just need to change, and every year you're getting different students. Sometimes you have a tough year with the classes you had. And sometimes it's the courses you're teaching. So I was really happy to get some different courses. But yeah, I just, every day that year, obviously having a mask on with the students and myself didn't help, but it wasn't that. It was just like the showing up, and like, I was doing things a lot on, with my YouTube. And then we had our 3rd kid during that year. And I was like, the passion was just for me to be able to show up. Like, I was showing up as kind of like an invisible skeleton. Like, I was there, but like the passion for teaching, the passion for being there, the passion for helping the students, to give them that, like, sit next to them and like show them exactly what they needed to know. Like, it just it just wasn't there. And I was like, all right, that's it. Like, you can't fake it, you can, but you can't. So that was where I just like, I had to like, I got to do it. I got to step away, and, so yeah, it's something that's, I wouldn't change at all because I knew it was the right thing for me. Like, I knew it was the right time. I'm confident in that. But as far as like missing the kids, as far as missing the banter that goes on inside the classroom, the ability just to, step into a classroom and just, get to know the kids and then see the transformation from the beginning to the end of the year. I miss that for sure, but I'm really happy for the 14 years I had. And I just kind of treat it like that. Like, that was, some good times.
Sorry. No, you're fine. The video that you posted when you were making your announcement on YouTube, because I was going through math at that time, and I had followed Mike and I both watched your videos. Like I said, you helped us out tons of times. Yeah. I think I did share. I cried a little bit because I think you're pretty emotional in your video, and my wife was like, "Why are you crying right now?" And I was like, "Cause Brian's leaving his class. Like, who's gonna?" But then I was reassured. I was like, "Oh, okay, so he's gonna be making content still on YouTube."
Yeah.
So that's honorable of you to be able to recognize that in yourself, that you're not bringing your best version of yourself to the class. And there's probably lots of teachers that are just going through the motion you know, and it's not just teaching, but it could be any job. It can be any person just showing up, not bringing their best version of themselves to the workplace. And you probably recognize that could probably that could be a detriment on these students, you know?
Right.
So that's very, on like I said, it was an emotional video that you posted, but you're killing it now. So you're
yeah.
doing
Well, I mean,
job.
it's nice just to be able to, I don't think it's not fair for me. It's not fair for my family. It's not fair for the students, right? You walk in, you get Mr. McLogan, you need to get Mr. McLogan, you know? And I can't remember it was like a book on tape or something like that. You know, I think it might've been real estate or something. And I just remember someone was talking about like they're on a client call or they're in a bathroom, and then they saw like this guy takes the phone like on with the client, like on a urinal. And it's like, just think about how important that person was on the other end of the call, you know, like can't give them like your full attention. Like, you know, obviously an emergency is an emergency, but it's like, you know, there's just that semantics, you know, I kind of go around that. I'm like, and I think that was the kind of the point too, where people feel like, oh, if you're doing YouTube, like you're not focused on my child. Right. Which I can totally see. Like if you have no idea who I am, no idea how I teach, you've never been inside the classroom, which again, I would just tell them, come inside my class and you'll see how much focus is on the YouTube. But again, like I can see the semantics on that, you know, and yeah, you know, I feel like I wanted to make sure that everybody had a good experience in my class and they got the best of me. So yeah, you know, when that's not going to be the course, like case, that's what, you know, I knew it was time, but it's a difficult too, because, you know, I tell people, I mean, this is something I've been doing for 14 years. Like, so it's not like I'm, you know, and even though, yes, I didn't go to math to become like, you know, doing something completely different. Like I'm still doing educating, right? I'm still making videos, but now it's not, oh, here's what you're teaching today. Just record yourself teaching. Like that's natural, right? Now I'm inside of this painted wall. I got a few lights and now I'm like, you know, so I got to like recreate the environment or my thought process of how I'm thinking through a math problem. Because a lot of times when you do see me teach on my videos, I might explain something, you know, first period. And then through my explanation, I'll be like, oh, actually, you know what? I'm going to explain it this way next period. And then so next period, I'll explain, you know, maybe a different problem, but in a different way. Right. And I'll like record that. And like, so when you're recording by yourself, it's different, you know, because like you don't get that feedback, you know, or if you do, then you got to sit back and, you know, if you do in your brain, then you're like, okay, I got to re-record it. And I'm like, okay, I just did an hour recording. Like I got to walk outside or something like that, you know? So it's like, I definitely miss the educational part of it. But I do, you know, but I do enjoy this challenge of trying to figure out the online, because I still feel there's such a big impact that I can make with students and with like education and math. So, you know, that's something that still kind of strives me. And like I said, I don't, you know, I can't foresee myself not making videos and not trying to be, you know, somewhat of a, you know, inspiration or a content help for students down the road. So, you know, thankfully still young to make some more videos. And I got kids that'll be going through the school system. So I plan to be really, really old and people will be like, wow, he was making videos before I was born, you know?
Although you don't get to see the progression and, you know, graduation of the students every year, it's pretty cool to think that, you know, you're touching, I don't know how many classes you'd have, but maybe 100 kids a year.
Yeah,
but
like
now
120 and
100. Oh wow, it's close.
120 kids, roughly. Yeah.
But yeah, maybe I am better at math than I thought. But the reach you have now, you would never get that in the classroom. I mean, you reach Jon, you don't even know Jon, and he followed you so hard that he watched your video where you're leaving because he likes you that much. He's one of your students. You don't even know him. So like, I mean, there's no telling how much students you really have a year now. You could have millions of students, and just that ability. And I know it's probably hard to go in every day and be that teacher and then teach kind of the same thing. But if you can put a lot of passion into one video and try to catch all of, the questions that you've learned over 14 years and kind of put that in the videos, and that thing lives forever. And then, if you think you need to update it, you just update the video and you're just so much more reach. So I think you're in the right spot now. I mean, Jon reached out and, and saw your videos and you helped him, and you're still doing a really good job. You've never put those videos out. Who knows what Jon would try to find on the internet.
Your comments, I love reading YouTube comments, and some of the comments I see on your page are just spot on with me specifically too, that I see tons of people saying, I learned more with you in this 2 minutes than I have the entire semester with my teacher. That's so powerful and so true. Because if I type in a problem to YouTube or Google and I see your specific thumbnail, I get so excited because I know, all right, I'm about to learn really how to do this problem, and I can apply it across the entire section of this course, So that's pretty powerful that you have the ability to teach within 2 minutes a subject and completely dismantle what this other professor did for over, an hour. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Well, I think the power, that's definitely with the power of YouTube. I think it's also the power of like learning, where a lot of people get frustrated with math too, is because they'll learn something, but then you give them another problem. You're like, I don't know how to do it that way, or like under that problem. Right. And a lot of times when you are learning, when you talk about people that understand math really well, they're able to make the connections. They have those connections, those neurons, whatever in the brain. Like they're already like from what they know from in a different context to like the math they're supposed to be learning. Like they already have that connection built. So now it's just seeing the math and it's like, oh, okay, I see how that's done, right? And so a lot of times, like when you're getting confused or you're not seeing that, kind of connection, it's great to be able to, you might understand a whole bunch of stuff, but it's like that one little connection. And if it's like that one little video that, I'll take all the credit I can, because sometimes it is just that one little thing I might say, or the one little problem. It's like, oh, that's it. That's what I needed, and it's like, and it's, I still love like commented comments. I wish I used to respond to all of my comments, every single comment, every single day for hours and hours. And obviously now with kids, I'm like, all right, family first, like people understand, but whenever I get a chance, like, to get in the car, like I go and check, comments, and I love responding. I love hearing from students because, that is kind of like the food, that feeds me, and stuff like that, that feedback and that hearing from students and stuff like that. So it really is powerful, and I'm happy, can help you, Jon, obviously with your math, and hopefully you, Mike, in the future. But and just to help people come over those humps, because I know what again, I've lived through it. I know what it's like for that frustration, that stress. And then I also know what our current circumstance is, where people just, feel so much pressure on them to learn stuff. And they're quickly kind of labeled if the things are not making sense, quickly, or there's a stigmatization if you don't immediately understand something, from on there. So I'm happy to offer students a second, kind of ability to be able to learn what they were not getting, in their class or with their teacher or whatever else.
Absolutely. In closing, Brian, is most of our listeners are in the range of between 20 and 40 years old, according to the metrics that we have. But so they all have kids, young kids going through school. What's the one piece of advice that you can give parents to help stimulate if a parent is not strong in math and they recognize that, what's the one piece of advice that you have for them that could help their kids? What's that?
Stay curious.
Stay curious. Oh, I was like,
I think that right there. But I think the main thing is like, it's not so much about the parents being curious. Like, obviously we've already gone through life, but I think it's about fostering the students' curiosity. And, when students are having questions, it's like, let's investigate, let's figure that out. Let's find that, because I think when in education or with learning, when we're so quick to, when students are asking questions like, oh, I don't know. Or like, why is the sky blue? And it's like, no, I'm driving, like, I think just fostering that curiosity and giving students the, the ability to like, all right, let's go and figure out, like, let's keep on pushing. Like, why are we doing this math like this way? Like, hey, and I've got some of those comments too, like, from parents, like, I'm trying to, I was never good at math. Right. And I'm trying to help my daughter or my son. And watching your video, I'm like, I just want to help. I want to explain to them, or I want to learn this stuff too, because I never knew it, and I think there's, as I mentioned, we've done such a disservice in educating, and not so much in educating, but again, like also our stigmatization of, mathematics and stuff like that. And a lot of people have just had a poor taste of math in their whole life. And they're like, math sucks. I'm not going to learn this stuff. You don't really need to know it. Just do what you need to do to get a B and move on, or C, whatever. But I think just like, having some of that, curiosity of like, let's go and re-explore. Let's maybe, because the thing is, I think with math, the other thing we haven't talked about at all is, we have this idea that you have to learn math at a certain stage, right? And I understand grade levels, I understand graduation, but, there's this one thing that I always write with students, especially, when they fail something or they're struggling, I'm like, hey, math is not a race. You can, you can continue to learn math for the rest of your life. Like, stay curious, ask questions, be engaged with what you're learning. And I think when you want to foster a child, the one thing that I want to do for my children, which, is to support them and to really foster education, making sure that they are not feeling stupid because they don't get something. It's like, no, hey, it's okay. You didn't get it. Like, that's okay. Let's look at this tomorrow. Like, let's take a break, look at this tomorrow, but like, let's double down. Let's figure this out. Let's really understand how we can zero in and overcome this challenge that we have in front of them. And the biggest thing that I found with students that are successful also in my class is like that parents are like supporting them. It's not the parents that are like, you have to study, you're doing your homework 2 hours a night, and if you don't do it, I'm emailing Mr. McLogan, and he's not going to let you retake the test. It's like, no, that can work. That's a little carrot. It'll work once in a while, but that's not going to foster a lifelong learner, right? The best student parents that I've seen that have been able to foster students that have been really successful is like, they're always there to support, and even though how much I'm a proponent of, making sure that we have strong teachers and strong classrooms and strong resources, I also think like, one of the best things that we can do for students, for students and learn education is having parents that are there to support their children, and being involved in their education, asking them questions and helping them be curious and not just, having them focus on that carrot, but really to learn the information and to, there's going to be, and keeping up their, self-esteem and helping them, overcome their struggles and stuff like that. I think there's a lot that can benefit the students that I have. And I know it's not easy because I'm a parent myself now, and, everything's a lot easier said than done. But those are some of the things that I've noticed from the teacher perspective that I also want to be now from the parent side. And so hopefully that can, benefit any parents out there.
Awesome. That's great advice. Brian, we greatly appreciate your time, and it was fun. For the folks that don't know your channel or your Instagram, you want to state that real quick?
Yeah. So basically all my social media is at Brian Mclogan. So my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Brian Mclogan, Instagram at Brian Mclogan, and the, and TikTok at Brian Mclogan, producing content basically on all those. And then also my website is being reviewed being under construction right now, but that will be under free math videos and Brian Mclogan. I have both of those that I run.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Brian. Stick around. We're going to take a little picture afterwards, but keep rocking, man.
All right. Thanks so much, guys.
All right. Bye.